Mhm. Hello. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hey, I'm really sorry. Can we just start 15 minutes later, about 11:15? I'm suffering from COVID, and to be honest, I don't feel well. So, Ania Adamus-Matuszyńska, she's also a panelist. She will join us in 15 minutes, so she will help me, okay, with the whole discussion. So if you don't mind, if we can wait for her, maximum 15 minutes, okay?
Okay,
Thanks.
Maria.
Okay, Maria.
Take care.
Okay. Take care, Maria.
Get well soon. Wow, it's very serious.
So are you there? Yes. Wow, great. I'm really sorry that we start a little bit late. As I said, we are waiting for Anna. She will join us. But I can start. I'm really sorry for the noise in the back, but I have terrible problems with breathing. So I hope that you will forgive me this. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm honored to welcome you to a seminar on human rights in Asia. The seminar is organized as a part of International Asian Congress. 11 distinguished experts plus one moderator, 5 nationalities in 6 countries and in 4 time zones. I'm in the best position because I know all of you. I know that you are great experts with wide knowledge, with solid practical experience gained in many countries in the world. I can introduce you, but I think that you will do it much better. Okay, I will not do it in any special order. I will just do it. I will ask you to introduce yourself as I see you on the screen. Antonio, could you please start?
Just an introduction of myself.
Please switch on the microphone because we can't hear you.
Apparently my microphone is
No,
working,
I can't hear you.
but it is switched on.
There is a problem with a microphone.
The other people hear me? Yes.
I can hear you.
Only
Yeah, good morning. I can hear you.
Yeah.
Can you just change,
I
for
can
example,
hear you.
the device, for example, for your mobile phone? Maybe it will be easier.
Oh, we can hear him.
Okay, so maybe you will manage just to fix it, and I will. Okay, because I can't hear you. It's a little bit weird. Michał, ty słyszysz, tak?
Tak, słychać.
O, przepraszam, to coś u mnie. Przepraszam, sekundkę. Just a second. Yes, it's my fault. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
It's maybe because, I'm seriously ill. Okay, so let me start. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm honored to welcome you to a seminar on human rights in Asia. The seminar is organized as a part of the International Asian Congress. 11 distinguished experts plus one moderator, 5 nationalities in 6 countries and in 4 time zones. I'm in the best position because I know all of you. I know that you are great experts with great knowledge, but also with solid practical experience. I can introduce you, but I think that you will do it much better. Okay, so I will not do it in any special order. I will just ask you if you can introduce yourself as I see you on the screen. Antonio, okay, could you please start?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you for involving me in this project. I'm Antonio Stango. I'm a contract professor of International Organizations and Human Rights at Rome Link Campus University, after teaching in other institutions. And I am also the president of the Italian Federation for Human Rights.
Thank you so much, Antonio. Gias.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and nice to meet you all, and good to see you, Maria. My name is Gias Aljendi. I am based in London, and I'm originally from Syria. Left Syria a long time ago, 22 years ago. I left and settled down in London. I'm a human rights consultant at present. I do some consultancy with various human rights organizations, mostly about Syria and the Middle East. yeah, I worked for also for major human rights organization, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and all this PEN International. So I've been quite connected with the international human rights atmosphere. And I recently want to mention this. I recently started working on elections as well. So I did like, because now we are very involved. I literally slept in the last 24 hours, slept 20 minutes following what's happening in America, mainly because I want to see some blue sky outside. And yeah, and also because I also been working in the last few years on elections, either monitoring elections or monitoring the media and social media, which involved mainly disinformation, freedom of expression, and hate speech, and also like attack on women, female candidates. Sorry, I was long, and again, nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Gias. Adi.
Thank you, Maria. I am happy joining in this forum. My name is Ade Marufira Sinjaya. I am a lecturer and researcher in International Relations Department in one private university in Indonesia. My university is Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, and I met Maria at University 2 years ago. Yeah, Maria. Thank you, Maria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adi. Renata Gawaj Dębniak, she's a professor from Szczecin, University in Szczecin. Renata has some problems with throat, so today she will not participate in the discussion. She will only listen to us. Okay? Akihisa. I'm sorry, maybe my pronunciation is not correct, so please forgive me.
But that's perfect.
Thank you.
Correct. My name is Akihisa Matsuno. I'm Japanese. I'm teaching international politics for a long time at Osaka University in Japan. And in practical terms, I've been involved in a number of human rights cases, starting from the problem of East Timor, and also I worked with the Sri Wahyudiningrum Ayu on the massacre of communists in 1965. And then I'm also doing research on some conflict areas, Palestine, Western Sahara, Southern Thailand, and the Philippines, in which I think the human rights issue is very important. And I worked for the Truth Commission in East Timor for a year as an advisor. So nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Yet, step. Sorry, I always have problems with pronunciation.
That's okay. That's okay, Maria. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You pronounce it very perfectly. So good evening and good morning to us all. My name is Iyat Veda Sitepu. I come from Indonesia. I teach at Universitas Kristen Indonesia in Jakarta together with Imelda, my colleague here. I am an expert in higher education, and recently I'm working on a research international research on access of people with disability to higher education. So this is a little bit different to what the common people might think of human rights, but this is part of it. So looking forward to discussing with you all. Thank you very much. Back to you, Maria.
Thank you so much. Fabiana.
Hi, everyone. Maybe I'm the only journalist here. Yeah, so I'm like independent investigative journalist from Indonesia. I based in eastern part of Indonesia, and now I'm like a regular contributor for The Guardian. reporting from the Black Lives Matter movement, from the COVID-19 to Black Lives Matter movement. But my focus reporting in social injustice, indigenous community, and story of women across Indonesia. But I have written extensively on West Papua issue. So that will be like my focus right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabiana. Gabriela.
Hello. My name is Gabriela Morawska-Stanecka, and I think I'm the only politician in this group. So thank you for invitation. I used to be practicing barrister, but now in the moment I am deputy speaker of the Polish Senate. And of course, my work, just natural, is issue of human rights, but women's rights and women's rights violations, of course, especially in Poland, but I'm interested in women's rights violation all over the world. And thank you, Maria, and good health.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. And Gabriela was also my boss during a year. Okay, Ayu.
Hello, everyone. It's 7:30 p.m. here in Indonesia. I'm Ayu, or Sri Lestari Wahyuningrum, Ayu for short. I'm based in Jakarta. I'm currently teaching political science at one of the public universities in Jakarta. It's Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Jakarta. I also did research mainly on human rights, transitional justice, gender, democracy, and also with Pak Aki, as Aki was mentioned. Also, I'm also working on issues of the Indonesia 65 anti-communist mass violence. Also some other issues on human rights in Indonesia, but currently I'm starting to kind of like expanding my areas of research on Southeast Asian. I'm one of the member for Transitional Justice Asian Networks, which more on the transitional justice in Asia countries, especially Southeast Asia. Thank you, Maria, and so good to see some familiar faces here, Pak Aki, Febri, Febro, and of course you, Maria. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you for accepting my invitation. It's a real honor for me. Ania Adamus-Matuszyńska, as I mentioned it to you, because I'm suffering from COVID and I have terrible problem with my lungs. So Ania will support me today. Aniu.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I've been slightly late because I had a lecture to my students, international students, on the other hand, speaking about business ethics. So quite close to our, today topics. And I am an academic. I work at the University of Economics in Katowice, Poland, and I've been involving for many, many years in the issue connected with conflict resolutions. And since my first visit in Thailand, it was 10 years ago, I started interested in the so-called third sex. I don't like this term, but I think it's clear enough. You understand what I'm talking about. And especially now, because, Gabriela also mentioned about some, some issue connected with women discrimination, but in Poland, the issue of gender, the issue of non-heteronormative people, has been raised recently. So I think that in Poland, it is very, very important issue. Although the beginning of my, relation with this topic started in Thailand, right? But I am not an expert of Thailand, I just love this country, love the people. And this is why I'm interested in every issue connected with this society, Okay, so thank you very much. I participated with the panel, run by Maria 1 week ago. It was about conflict resolution, and she was excellent. I'm afraid, that it will be very difficult to me, to replace her. So sorry for any mistakes or, any issues. I hope not problems which may appear during our panel today. Okay, thank you, Maria. I'm giving you stage.
Thank you, Anya, so much. Thank you very much. Imelda, my sister, can we see you?
Hi.
Yes.
Hi, Maria. Nice to see you. Yeah. Good morning and good evening for all of you. My name is Imelda. I am from Indonesia, from Universitas Kristen Indonesia. I'm here with my two colleagues, Mas Ade and Ibu Yet. I'm a lecturer in Universitas Kristen Indonesia in Jakarta. I teach international relations subject, and my focus is on foreign policy, diplomacy, and global political economy issue. And I am also a researcher at Center for Social Justice and Global Responsibility, and I also focus on in justice issue and human rights issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So as you know, I have some questions to you because it will be a discussion, not typical presentations. So if you would like just to speak, you can just speak. Okay, so my first question to you is, what are the most important threats to human rights in Asia? Who'd like to start?
It's always difficult, Okay.
For me?
Yes, Akihisa. Yes, please.
Okay, of course, it's too difficult question, to comprehensively cover the question because Asia is too wide, and then issues are so spread out, and then each country has its own problem and each background history. So, but anyway, we have to start from somewhere. That's why I'm forced myself to speak first. I think there are a number of issues we can discuss separately from each country's issues. Each country has its own issues. Recently, I'm looking at China, of course, but China itself is a big issue in the field of human rights. And then Thailand, of course, recently it's a crisis of democracy, and in the Philippines, under Duterte, the human rights situation drastically deteriorating. So everybody knows it. So apart from these individual issues, maybe I can toss some ideas. Okay, so key issues such as securitization of everything is going on, but maybe this is not particularly Asian topic. It's going on all over the world. Securitization, security as a priority and a political discourse, and everything comes under this securitization policy. Then we have to shut up, and then many different voices can be silenced. Then the rise of populism. Well, this is not a new topic, but it began some years ago, and it's also a topic in Europe. And in Asia, populism is also an issue. And failures in democratic transition. Well, typically we see it in Thailand. It's very sad to see. So once Thailand was a kind of supporter of democratization in the whole Asia, in ASEAN, and but somehow it ended up in crisis. And now there's a serious doubt about the future of democracy in Thailand. It's very uncertain, and why this failure in democratic transition occurs. And then in the midst of this failure, we see a lot of human rights violations, and many activists are killed, even outside Thailand. I can talk about one example in Japan later. A Thai professor attacked in Japan. Then economic success of authoritarian politics. This is a controversial issue. We used to say democracy and economic prosperity go side by side in parallel, hand in hand. But that's the ideal of a European liberal democracy and so on. And Japan is one of the followers. But recently, very unfortunately, authoritarian regimes have achieved some successes in economic field, including China. So this success of authoritarian politics is an issue. And Chinese in international relations, China in international relations, it's providing aid, more aid to authoritarian regimes. And that is affecting the domestic affairs, for example, in the Philippines and Cambodia and Myanmar. And the position of human rights is very weak now in these countries, and the conditionality in foreign aid is now almost gone. So the European position on human rights is now weakening in Asia. And finally, I want to point out the decrease of impact of the UN human rights mechanism in Asia. So there are lots of things like this. And I also want to point out the digitalization of information. It's a broad issue, but certainly it has impact on the human rights. Okay, I want to stop here, and maybe somebody can continue to raise some other issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can I tell something?
Yes.
So I think that we are talking about human rights. So I'm of course special emphasis on women's rights. It's very important to say that women's rights are violated all over the world. It's not only in Asia or only in Africa or only in Europe. So its recent events in Poland prove that the fight for women's rights and for minorities, sexual minorities' right is not over, and regardless of geographical location or level of prosperity of the country. And I think that in countries where there is the tendency to base the legal system on religious beliefs, it's women and children who always become the victims. According to options of many experts, religion is one of the main reasons that fundamental human rights of women and girls are violated, and they are subjected to brutal violence. And for me, this is this influence on the religious fundamentalists of the legal system, on the legal system. And I think it's one of the most important reasons.
Hi, can
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for the information about Asia and women's rights, which is common. I want to speak about the Middle East, a part of the Asian Middle East, Syria, Palestine, and Lebanon, and the Middle East in chaos more than before. A lot of wars, infighting. I think now the biggest issue in the area in general, it goes into freedom of expression, terrorism, women's rights. If you want to speak about women's rights in Syria with its 10 years of devastating war, I can say really and sadly that women are the biggest victims of this war. Either they lost their children, their husbands, or they've been used, sexually abused, killed, tortured, and by all sides. Assad has killed so many women under torture in his jails, and also the Islamist, the terrorist groups also have put horrible unacceptable restrictions on women in Syria. And this is, I'm mentioning Syria as an example, because this is also happening in Iraq, it's happening in Yemen, it's happening in other countries. Maybe we have a single, when it comes to women rights in the Middle East or MENA region, Tunisia is a bit of a good example nowadays. Also, we have now one of the biggest issues or human rights issues in the region is the refugee issues. Imagine Syria is 22 million people. We have 10 million people outside of Syria. 10 million. Half of the country is outside, either in Turkey, in a neighboring country, Turkey, Iraq, Lebanon, Jordan, or some succeeded to come to Europe. We have also around 2 or 3 million internally displaced. This is really a common human rights issue in the whole region. Even Syria is a bit extreme because of the ongoing war. If you go to Palestine, also the international terrible political atmosphere had a very, very bad impact on human rights issues in the region in general, and in Palestine in particular. Like, you know, Trump, hopefully will not last long now, gave the free hand to dictators in the Middle East. So the Palestinians have been suffering awfully. I know that our Japanese friend has been doing research on Palestine. People are persecuted, killed, houses been demolished. So even the economic and the social and economic rights are being abused. I want to finish with one really bad thing. I know we have a journalist colleague here, because this is my area of work now, and I'm from journalistic background. So there is a common trend that journalists have been terribly attacked in the whole region of Middle East, except Tunisia to some extent. But we are speaking about Asia. You see in Egypt, one of the worst countries on earth now, maybe after China, of attacking journalists. We have journalists died in prison, like recently been abducted. In the last few weeks, female journalists were abducted. And in Saudi Arabia, we all know what's happening. To Jamal Khashoggi was cut off to pieces in the embassy in Saudi embassy in Istanbul. So that I am sorry to give you this gloomy atmosphere, but I can't see the Middle East in a very good shape now, like a human rights or political situation. I have been, Maria follows me, I've been supporting refugees all around, like either from different places and or remotely, and the stories of human rights abuse, it's beyond imagination, beyond acceptance that this happens in the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gias. Actually, I wanted to come back to this point a little bit later, but I think that this is maybe a good moment for it. You don't know probably, but Gias was a victim of human rights abusement. Gias promised me that he can tell the story. Okay, Gias, could you please?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I that's a bit long time ago, before the war. Actually, I started working as a journalist when I was really young, or activist before, tried to write, and Assad regime, not this Assad, his father, who was like even at least equal in being horrible or worse. So being targeted, me and my family came from a very like clear opponent family, Assad family. So I've been arrested a few times. The first time I was arrested when I was 17, but it was only for a few months. And the second long arrest when I was 19. So I spent 4 years in prison for a little tiny article I wrote, which is called, it's a satirical article. It's called "Thank God We Have Human Rights." And I didn't write my name on it, but then I found out. So in Syria, until that time, there was no internet, of course. We didn't have any independent media or papers or anything, but we have underground papers related either to the communist or the leftist parties. So I wrote this little article called "Thank God We Have Human Rights," but everybody wrote, if you read the title, you would definitely know that I was being satirical when I was making fun of the regime or criticizing the regime. So yeah, thank God we have freedom of expression. So I was listing, we don't have torture, we don't have women abuse, blah, 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 blah. So in a few days, somebody tipped me off. I'm sure some of the Eastern European people here know that what does mean, like to have informants. I'm sure Poland had them. So we don't know who is informant in Syria. Like you only trust your immediate family, brother and sisters, and mom and dad. So they got me, and I thought I would go for 1 week, 2 weeks. I ended up going for 4 years. Of course, without any trial, without any charge. So they got you, put you in a cell, torture you horribly. So I was exposed to severe torture. Like I can't even describe it, except if you want details. Electric shocks, beating, hanging from the ceiling, was like my arms up. And yeah, that was the situation. I made me flee Syria after, because I've been released after 4 years, just opened the door and okay, now you can go. Not only me, but like few other thousands. Assad decided, okay, now we broke them down and then we released them. The prison atmosphere in Syria, I mean, during the war is different. Like it's not Amnesty International called Assad jails as slaughters. This is, now they take people and kill them. But that time, the prison conditions, it's maybe happened in the 13th century in England or something. It's you have no rights, zero food, zero medical attention, and sometimes you are in your cell. I spent 4 months in solitary confinement. So for 4 months, I didn't speak to anybody except the walls. So I was befriending the walls, writing with my nails on the wall and stuff. But after that, they moved me out. So I was with 40 people in a room. It was like 4 meters by 5. Imagine, this is 40 people in this room for 4 years. So some people, we couldn't sleep. So when people slept, some people had to stand up because we don't have space to sleep. Or you'll be too selfish if you sleep on your back. You can't sleep on your back. You have to sleep on your sides because your size takes on your side. Sorry, it takes less side. This is after 4 months of spending time in the solitary confinement. They bring you back to the collective cell. But then also they don't torture you except when they wanted to, they like physically, but they torture you mentally or psychologically. They ban you from seeing your family. If you need medicine, they don't give you any medicine. And then sometimes, like I tell you a story, like once I was sleeping at 2 a.m. and I overheard 2 jailers said, like, let's bring this guy and make fun of him. And they make fun of him. They brought me and tortured me for no reason, just to entertain themselves. And so this happens to me, and I was very lucky. I consider myself very lucky. So I only spent 4 years. My older brother spent 5 years. My cousin was killed under torture completely, like tortured him to death. And we all secular, we all like, we don't have any involvement with Islamists, we don't have any involvement. And that time there was no Islamists in Syria, or they're being all kicked out. But criticizing the regime was enough for you to go for 10 years, even if you say to your neighbor like Assad is horrible. So that was this period I spent. But I tell you, the period after I've been released, and after that, it was kind of more difficult than prison, because they kept you under surveillance, and like you can't say anything. Imagine, I'm Syrian. I didn't have a work permit. They took work permit from me, so I couldn't work in my country. I couldn't work. Whenever I had a job, they sacked me. And also because they terrorize, they intimidate community. So if you have and I had masters in Syria, so I'm educated too. But then if you have a shop or cafe and you employ me, the Secret Service will come to you and arrest you. You're employing a traitor. So at the end, 1998, the pressure was amounting on me. Like, I had to report to this detention center every month. And we have 5 different detention centers, and they compete who would abuse more to show loyalty to Assad. So like, I go out of state security department, and the Air Force department summoned me next day. And it was the hell I lived. At the end, 1998, they tried to arrest me, and I actually traveled on my brother's passport. Syria, Russia, we don't need visa. You know, the Syria Soviet client. So I fled to Moscow first. Like, I went on the first thing I could go to. And then I traveled to work in London, and I settled down here. I want to tell you something, because I told you the bad thing, but then prison also made me strong. Like, you have 2 options. Either you hit the cell door or the cell's wall and break your head up, or you say, I'm here, I'm going to resist. And I resisted inside me. So I didn't have books, no pen, no papers, and I'm a writer. I'm mainly a writer. So I did poetry in my brain, did poetry on the wall. I started telling, like, recalling stories. Like, I started, for example, doing things, invented things, like how many olive trees around our house, how many orange trees in our orange grove, how many children in the family. You know, you entertain yourself, but you make yourself mentally strong. You say, I am going to survive, and I am not letting them break me. And the decision was very, very difficult and easy. It was difficult. How can you do that for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, a year, but not for 4 years? And I was very young. I was missing the best years of my life, like your 20s. It's where you go and have fun, love a woman or a girl or whatever, and get drunk. I was missing these years, and that was hurting me. And I was missing the sea. I'm Mediterranean addict. Even I live in London, but I travel to the Mediterranean a lot. And that was very important to tell you about it. The strength I could gather from inside me. It annoyed, if I can use the word hurt, it hurt my jailers a lot. They were hating me, and many others like me. When they released me, they asked me, do you now believe in Assad? And I told them, now I don't believe in Assad more than I used to be. Now I know where I don't believe him more. So I gathered this strength, sorry, and worked on myself also. Like, I did a plan, like, to overcome the torture, because the torture, if you don't deal with it, it stays here. But I dealt with it, luckily, successfully, and also was very lucky to come to London, to Britain. So I had very, very good attention. We have a great organization here created by a Holocaust survivor, Helen Bomber, and it's called the Medical Foundation for the Victim of Torture. This has helped me a lot, and this has helped me overcome, like, in the last 20 years, I dreamt about torture maybe once. But this is the strengths I built inside me. I want to finish here because I tell you something, the strengths inside me didn't stay inside me. I also did all my best to transmit these strengths to others. So it's why I came and I worked for Amnesty International for 7 years and other organizations, and went back to Amnesty and other organizations. So I used my experience to help other people. I became extremely aware of rights. My mom coming to the prison and banning her from visiting me, made me also more aware of women's rights. So I tried to build this collection of strengths, and I'm sorry if I made you sad.
Thank you so much, Gias, for the story. Who'd like just to? Yes, Anya. Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. Sorry. Thank you very much, Gias, for your very touching, emotionally touching story. But listening to you, as well as listening previous speakers, it comes to my mind that one of the threats which Asia is facing nowadays, maybe not only Asian countries, is religion. But what I want to tell about religion, religion, threatens human rights, but also, current situation, globalization, and in fact, in my opinion, the kind of bankruptcy of liberal democracy threatens the religion. And give me 2 examples, but I'm wondering whether you accept what I'm saying. Maybe you've got different point of view. Gabriela mentioned about religion in Poland. I remember the time, 80s, when religion as well as the church and the clerks were very, very supportive, So when we search freedom in the churches, and religion give you freedom. I mean, religion I understand as belief, right? Nowadays in Poland, the situation is entirely different. Fundamentalist religion, especially those who promote fundamentalist religion, threaten human rights. Gabriela mentioned about women's rights, I would add homosexual rights and probably the others. And another example is Thailand, which nowadays is really in very difficult time. But probably that Buddhism is dominant religion in Thailand, and generally within this religion, there is a great acceptance for 4 genders, not only 2, women and men, right? But there are 4 genders. But what happens when liberal democracy and freedom economy, settle down in Asia, among other in Thailand? What happened? Buddhism as the dominant religion accepts gender issue, but what happened in companies which are European or American origin don't want to employ those who do not present themselves as, female or male. So there are many, many cases. Even if you go to internet, you will find many cases, many examples how people from Thailand say that, oh, I've got proper education, I've got proper qualification, but when I revealed that I am Kato, yeah, I never know how to pronounce in Thailand, this, I represent the serpent. Suddenly it turned out that I can find the job, receive the job. And another example from Thailand, which is I think quite well known, that globalization make us, people from Europe and for other countries, come to Thailand not to explore the beauty of this country, not to understand better the culture, but to meet the strange people. Sorry for that. It's my opinion. It's not my opinion, but I know how it works. Many people from Europe went you know, because of pandemic, they stopped doing it, to meet these Tao people, the third sex, so for celebrities, for entertainment. And what happened, that those people in Thailand who really cannot declare that I am male or female, you know, they cannot find jobs according to their qualification. What they do, they go to the theaters. Some of them probably like these jobs, right? I had some interviews with those who work in the homosexual theater. I mean, LGBT, it's better to say, sorry for that, right? They just go to the entertainment industry. Who to entertain? Us, Western people. So these are my two remarks, you know, but the starting point is religion. You know, I remember the time when religion was very, very helpful. You know, I consider Polish case and Poland, but nowadays I see that religion is losing, you know, its background. You know, we've got fundamental religion, which by essence is against human rights, but those religion which is able to support disadvantaged people, you know, or any kind of minorities, you know, maybe does not exist. But maybe I am wrong. This is my remarks coming from listening to you and as well as from the knowledge I've got. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Who'd like to continue?
Maybe I can add from the youth perspective. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit different. I think like the biggest threat for the youth generations, I think Akihisa already told about the rise of popularism, and I agree with that. That's I think like the government now like more repressive, and I see that our generation or the younger generation of me, the generation Z, we stood up against this repressive government. It's happened like from Thailand to Indonesia, but because we are very active in social media, so the government, they have like weapons to clamp down all these young activists. So they like jail them using if in Indonesia we have this electronic law something, so they can jail us if we post something that against the government, for example. So that's so it's related to the internet freedom across Asia, I think, especially in Southeast Asia. And continuing Anna, also, I think I personally see that there is another, again, this is from the youth perspective, there is another threat of human rights in Indonesia is racism against the religious and marginal communities, and this is systemic. In the wake of the death of George Floyd and then Black Lives Matter movement, I think so many youth across Asia realize that this is like the fundamental problem of human rights for them. Like we now like become aware how we are so racist, for example, to the migrant worker or like refugee, like Rohingya in Malaysia, for example, and then marginal communities. And then also in my focus reporting indigenous people, in the case of the rise of Buddhism and nationalism in Thailand, we also have like majority Muslim in Indonesia who is like very conservative, attacking the indigenous people who just like applying their indigenous ritual, and this is very real in Indonesia right now. For example, Kejawen is local religion. They were attacked by the conservative majority Muslim in Indonesia. So I think like and don't forget also, we talk about human rights in Indonesia. We don't forget about what happened if Middle East has like the case of Syria and Palestine. In Indonesia, we have West Papua, and even by Indonesian itself deny that our government occupy West Papua with the help of USA, thanks to the Cold War at that time. So in West, I'm in West Papua right now by coincidence. So in West Papua, just like yesterday, the killing of West Papuan, the death of West Papuan, it's daily news here. So just yesterday, we heard like 2 West Papuan, for example, tortured by Indonesian military. So this is everyday story in West Papua and didn't cover by even national media. So it's very quiet. And then, and as a journalist, I would say also like the problem with the freedom of press across Asia. Like we see like the case of Maria Ressa in Philippines. In West Papua, it's like like foreign journalists banned to come here. You need to apply and the process is very long. And that's why I came here to cover the story and stay here. So yeah, I mean, like if we talk about human rights Asia, I think don't forget like there is like a Black community and in Asia, and the number is 2 million here, and it's still like the killing of West Papuan like happen like every week. Like I just arrived here and then I just heard like 2 West Papuan tortured by Indonesian police and military. So it's happening also, and people like in Syria and Palestine, people are jailed also, and also some of them even not jailed but kill like they're killing animal. So yeah, so this is like very important to talk that if we talk about human rights in Asia, please do not exclude West Papua because they are suffering as well.
Thank you so much, Febriana. Who'd like to continue? Oh, Antonio.
Okay, thank you. Well, one point that was raised by several of our colleagues is the issue of religion. And of course, religion, when it comes to the fundamentalist approach, is extremely dangerous for the cause of human rights and freedoms. On the other hand, I will focus in my written contribution on China and minority and religious freedom in China. Well, the problem is, from a certain point of view, that in China, in my opinion, there is the party religion or state religion that is not less fundamentalist than other ones, and probably more dangerous because in the Chinese regime has all the power, not only the spiritual or theological or ideological power, but together the military power, including the nuclear power, and the huge economic power that has been raising up so much in the last few decades. So that is why I would consider the Chinese propaganda almost as a state religion that has been imposed, especially in the last few years, over the religious and ethnic minorities in China. So the Han population in China is probably something like 91%, but then the 9% of ethnic minority groups consist anyway of something like 150 million people or so. So it means that also numerically the issue is very consistent. But when it comes to something that regards each, in my opinion, each and every inhabitant of this planet, is the essence of freedom that is under threat in China. For instance, the Tibetan Buddhism. So Tibetan Buddhism is something that is practiced, as we know, by some 5 or 6 million people in the so-called Tibetan Autonomous Region that has almost nothing more of its autonomy, by some other million people in the rest of China, who may be not Tibetan, but they are attracted by some ideas and tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, and is anyway very important for many of us in the world, because we can be interested to that kind of spiritualism. And this is just an example. So when the Chinese regime forbids even to keep a photograph of the Dalai Lama in a home in Lhasa or in other places in Tibet, when they even arrive to the paradoxical situation that they pretend to establish in the future who will be the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. So it is the paradox that the atheistic regime will decide an issue of reincarnation. And so when it comes to this kind of situation, I believe that this is a big danger for the concept of freedom, of interior freedom of all the world. And this danger is comparable, in my opinion, to the danger that is constituted by the religious fundamentalism as we typically know. So, and one other point that I would raise, Maria knows that it is one of my main interest in the analysis of human rights, is the difference between the universalistic conception and the so-called relativistic approach to human rights. So many regimes, especially in Asia, it can be said also in Latin America or in Africa, but especially in Asia, many regimes pretend that they apply universal human rights in a regional way. And of course, it is enough, besides other deeper consideration, to think except about China. So there is Taiwan. They are basically the same people. They share thousands of years of common histories and traditions, but they are under two different regimes. So the problem is that it is the regime that imposes a vision and pretend sometimes that it is a regional way of interpreting the human rights. And the same for Korea. So North Korea, Southern Korea. So of course they are very different. If we go to our past history, even in Italy, there were the same people in the same region, in the same city. Some of them were fascist, some of them was not. So what was the tradition? Was authoritarianism? Was liberalism? Or what? No. The problem is that human rights are developing in the history, and that the basis is what commonly, after the catastrophe of the Second World War, was decided as international bill of human rights. And in conclusion for my intervention now, except China, the Chinese regime, when they say human rights in China must be in this way according to our tradition, for instance, they say, for us, they are more important the values of the community and not the individual rights, are more important the social and economic rights, not the freedom of expression of religion and so on. But then they deny the regional approach when it comes exactly to Tibet or to Uyghur minority or to the Inner Mongolia, for instance. So in that case, there is no possibility of existence of a regional approach because the approach will be only the one imposed by the regime. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Antonio. Who'd like to continue?
Hey, Maria.
Adi, yes, Adi, and after it, Ayu.
Yes, thank you, Maria, for this opportunity. Thank you for your insightful opinions for all speakers in here. I want to add something. The first time I want to criticize the opinion that put like religion or Islam in homogeneous entity. I come from one Islamic movement in Indonesia, Muhammadiyah movement. This is a moderate Muslim. So when I read some commentator from Western scholar, I disappointed because they put Islam in homogeneous entities. Because if you look in Indonesia, there are many streams of Islamic movement, from moderate to quote unquote radical. So I come, I think this is need to to confirm because some misunderstood about Islamic movement tend and prefer put Islamic movement in one categorization. So in Indonesia, I think today in Islamic movement there are we can divide Islamic movement in Indonesia streams. Some scholars from educate class and from universities, based on my witness, they support to democracy with some critical notes. But another Muslim wings movement, they join in perhaps in marginalized movement and in radical movement. So based on my research last year in uh, in for young people to Islamic young people in Indonesia, especially in Yogyakarta, we asked to them how their opinion about Islamic State project, for example, and surprisingly, more than 75% from educate young people in universities in Yogyakarta disagree with Islamic State project, and they want to reshape globalization value with critical point. This is my first opinion for today. And the second one, I think today, like we live in Samuel Huntington syndrome. You know, Samuel Huntington in 1993 posed a controversial thesis about the place of civilization. I think today we witness the conflict of value, the conflict of identity. I prefer to use identity than religion, because within Islam itself, particularly in Indonesia, there are many quote unquote good civil society and bad civil society. There's some wings imposed by government. Some movement give frontal criticize to government. Yes, there are many streams in Indonesia, and I think political identity is a serious problem. This is ironical problem for Indonesia when Indonesia put in democracy index in the world in good position in the world today. This is ironical because some scholar based my investigation in some popular media like in Compass, in Tempo, in some commentator very afraid about authoritarian turn in Jokowi era today. Jokowi just give like candies for the children in the garden, but at the same time he stole the candy from the children. I think democracy like just arena, not ethic, not political ethic, just political arena. And last my point of view is today eco-right, economy, social, and cultural right also happen in Indonesia when Jokowi focus on infrastructure and economic growth and in investation and make close relationship with investor and keep his power with military and oligarchs. some lamentation from CSO or civil society organization and from human rights defender in this week. I think described that Jokowi put economic in prime priority and ignore the non-traditional issues like environment, ecology, identity, and also in Papua, as mentioned by Fabiana. This is my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ayu?
Thank you. I think I have to agree with many of the previous speakers, and I think Akihisa made a good starting point when trying to assessing the current situations or issues, relevant issues, significant issues in Asia. At least based on my observations in mostly in Indonesia, because I live in Indonesia, of course, and also to confirm what our colleague Ade and Febri also was explaining on current situation in Indonesia. But I also try to make some observations from other Southeast Asian countries, and I think we haven't talked a lot about how this pandemic also has big impacts on not only on the practices of democracy, but also on the protection and fulfillment of human rights. So I think it's a big big significance on that. In Indonesia, for example, well, I mean, some countries might do well on how they handling the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, but some, like Indonesia, for example, it's in a way it what do you call that? It make ways for practices of authoritarianism to be in place. And because I'm currently writing a chapter on Indonesia, well, there's some colleague in Melbourne University who's doing a book on new authoritarianism in Asia, and I'm writing a chapter about Indonesia. And I think it's interesting because authoritarianism as practice, or some call it as innovation, are used in both the autocracy and democracy regime. So in Indonesia, for example, you know, it's also very much related to how the illegal practices has been taking place by the government, like shutting down the freedom of expression, freedom of organizations, and you know, nowadays it's but in Indonesia, usually everything is blamed on communists, so as if communists are still well alive, but it actually has been crushed long time ago. And then nowadays they're using, after that they're using the Islamic terrorists as you know, the scapegoat of everything. And then nowadays they're using this anarchists as, you know, some people or group to blame for. But interestingly, this regime that is currently operating the innovations of the authoritarian innovations, they're using democratic procedures, democratic mechanisms to justify. Like, for example, it's surprisingly in 2019 when we had a big presidential election, and where Indonesia became very much divided into, you know, well, very much divided basically. But you know, it in a way that justify the identity politics that Ade was mentioned. It justify you know, the anti-nationalist issues that, you know, most Papuans are being accused of, and because of, you know, Papuans, as Febri was mentioning, was also important in this case, because it is not only about the politics, geographic politics or identity politics of being the Melanesians and being Indonesian as oppressive to the West Papuans, but also about how Indonesians perceive Papuans as racist in racist way. I think February was mentioning about that also. But you know, all this the COVID thing give ways, as I mentioned, the COVID give ways to the government to impose their what do you call undemocratic or their authoritarian nature, and it becomes so blunt. It's so we can see it nakedly. Like for example, the neoliberal ways of doing the economics in Indonesia, which they wanted to open wide investment, international investment, but on the benefit of some people, which I think Ade was correct mentioning the oligarchic groups, which support the politics today in Indonesia, but then at the cost of, you know, the rights of the indigenous to land, the rights of the farmers, but also, you know, the rights, what I mentioned, the rights to civil liberties, and, you know, freedom of expression, associations, and everything. So I think, in a way, my point is the pandemic. It's just giving. It's like giving wide open ways for the regime to basically come up as they are, you know, in a more open ways and in a more we can see it with our own eyes. But also I want to mention the roles of civil society and academics in this way. I think with civil society in Indonesia, it's quite clear in a way, because I think democracy, we've had democratic practices since 22 years ago, but I think it's civil society elements that keep democracy in its track, because then they have, because the check and balance in Indonesian politics doesn't work, but then the check and balance, the control is now on the hands of the civil society, and this is the groups that the government has been continuously targeting for suppression, because we don't have opposition in politics. Those who say they were opposition is basically absorbed now in politics, so we only have new authoritarian regime now, of course with the new variant, but we still have a healthy civil society that can controls that, even though the civil society has also been divided quite harshly in 2019 election, and some of them were also absorbed in the new regime. But more and more, I think new members of the civil society, which is quite critical in the movement, is students. Unfortunately, not so much on the professors, the academics. So we have problems on academic freedom in Indonesia. So we have now an alliance of academics in Indonesia who talks about the freedom of academic freedom. But I think more to this year, more until now, I think one of the serious issue also how to grant or how to make sure academic freedom also upheld in universities, not only to the scholars but also to students. So yeah, I think more or less this is what's going on in Indonesia, just to add some of the information already given to my Indonesian colleague. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much. Who'd like to
Yes,
talk?
I would like,
Yes,
I would like to.
okay. Yes, please. And
Anna,
after
would you like to go first? Okay.
No, yes, you were first. Yes, and after it,
it is very interesting. All of your points. Yeah, I listened attentively, and see, because you come from a perhaps similar background. I come from education, but I think that this is a very relevant issue that we have to address. So I would like to ask you to attract your attention into the underrepresentation and poor achievement in education for 650 million of disabled people in Asia Pacific region. So this is a big number, which I think only some of us have given attention to them. So let me just give you what's this, a figure, yeah, not figure, but information that I think people with disabilities have received lack of attention because they tend to stay in the background. Yeah, they are also subject to multiple forms of human rights violation, and that includes the neglect of their most basic needs and also education. So the number is very, very surprising. I found in the literature, and I think we should also think about this, because their existence tend not to attract crowds, unlike other kind of violence. Their struggle is in silence. Yeah, they don't attract people's attention because that's how they are. And the spectrum of disabilities is really, really diverse. Yeah, so we need also to address their needs. Yeah, so that they are not denied of their rights. So this because what I got here, that in Indonesia, yeah, for example, we have 114 rules and regulations concerning people with disabilities. Yeah, how to address their rights, how to cater their needs. But somehow in the implementation, we don't see any attention given to them. So this, I think, is a very, very also important issues. Yeah, and this is what we are going. I'm going to propose, Maria, in my writing, so that at least it may attract our attention also, because. And also, I would also like to add what Gabriela has also mentioned. So if we are talking about people with disabilities and their and how they are denied into to their rights, we also have to think that women with disabilities will be discriminated doubled. Yeah, so whatever happened to human being, you just have to double the consequences and the burdens to women. So we can actually talk about this further in the future. Thank you so much, Maria. I will add like later on.
Thank you very much, Imelda.
Yeah, Maria, thank you. Is that working? Yeah. Okay. For me, the most important human rights issue in Asia that bothers me a lot right now is the existence of populism. Yeah. Why is it important? Because populism and human rights is a contradiction. You know, yeah, populism is a serious threat for the human right. And in Asia, we have Duterte. According to Human Rights Watch, almost 8,000 to 12,000 people die because of Duterte extrajudicial killing. Yeah, and I'm so angry with when I read about the data, the report from UN, from Amnesty International. I'm so angry with the fact, and then I want to know what factors that contribute to human rights abuse by populist leader, and then I found at least three reasons that contribute to human rights abuse, especially in Philippines in Duterte era. The first one is security reason. You know, Duterte claims that drug problem is a national threat, and his claim got support from the Filipino. From the research, it shows that 86% Filipino agree with Duterte claim, and it makes it easier for Duterte to implement the extrajudicial killings. And the second reason is about the legitimacy and democracy. So Duterte, drug war, the extrajudicial killing is for the people, not for he himself. Yeah, that's his argument, his claim. Yeah, and then the results also show 78% support Duterte's illegal drug, and 62% stated that Duterte was successful in dealing with the problem, the drug war. So it is worry me. And again, just like in Indonesia, check and balance doesn't work in Philippines. Yeah, you know, the opposition and the enemy who oppose Duterte, just like the Lima, the judge. Yeah.
Is something wrong with the internet connection, probably?
We lost her.
Yes.
It rains hard here in Jakarta. I think it affects the
one level. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
One level.
You're back.
You're back.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So you know, check and balance doesn't work in Philippines, just like in Indonesia. So I want to discuss with you, especially the one who from Indonesia, populism. We know Jokowi is populism. Metzner call him polite populism. Yeah, good populist leader. But as good as populist leader, populism is a threat to human rights. So we must be aware from now, at least for the activists, human rights activists, from now on, especially for Ibu Sri or Farida ya tadi. What is the name? Yeah, must be aware from Ayu, yeah. Must be aware with the existence of populism, not only in Philippines but also in Indonesia, in our country itself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have another question about challenges. What are the most important challenges to human rights in Asia? I know that it's quite a general question as well, but I would like just to ask you if you can look at it through a pandemic, through COVID issues as well. Who'd like to start?
Okay, can I say
yes.
something?
Sure.
Well, the Asia is perhaps the only region in the world that doesn't have a regional human rights organization. We don't have an Asian Human Rights Court. We don't have a Asian mechanism to deal with the human rights abuses. Now, Africa, Latin America, let alone Europe, have its own regional human rights mechanism. but Asia is so diverse and there's no unity, and well, only when they talk about Asian human rights they become compact. but they never try to crystallize this idea of Asian human rights. Of course, I don't agree with that. Then they don't want to create a unified mechanism on human rights in Asia. It's institutionally it's a big challenge.
Thank you so much. Would like to add something? Yes, Gias, please.
Yeah, can I add? Thanks for. Can I add something like in the Middle East, for example, take away like maybe Saudi Arabia because it's rich, or the Gulf. There are no. Also, like I'm adding to my colleague who spoke before me, there are no institutions, human rights institutions, like which support like people who are suffering from pandemic in general. Not only the one who get infected, but also the one who get affected. Like for example, people who lost, the journalists who lost their work, people who lost their work. I mean, let's say the human rights defenders who are also exposed to this and they can't do any work. I want to add something to the region, which is, I don't know if how much coincide with the human rights, but for example, in the region we have a lot of stigma. And this is what Anna, our friend Anna, mentioned, the religion, how much the religion can be used. For example, there are a lot of stigma against people who get infected with COVID-19. So it's like some people wanted to hide forever because I had corona. You know what I mean? And then there is no support for these people. There is no support for their rights, for their psychological support. Like for example, when people go to torture, you have like medical foundation support you. And this is one of the biggest problems now. People are suffering. And I want to take Syria, the Syrian regime, as an example. You know, in Syria, like if, for example, my brother wouldn't tell me like his neighbor get infected with COVID-19, you go to prison. They arrest you. It's like North Korea. They arrest you. If you say we have 20,000 corona cases and you go to prison, you get arrested. So, and this is mostly goes within like the freedom of expression definition, but it's still these things has very, very bad impact on people in general, human rights workers in more particular, and on human rights in general in the whole region. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Ayu, please.
Okay, just adding one more what you call that variable that might also be a big challenge for today's human rights in Asia, which is closely related to the COVID-19 pandemic, is the economic crisis that comes after that, because that not only will impact how the government or the regime will run the country, but also in terms of the fulfillment of socio-economic and cultural rights of its people. Like one friend asked me about the current Indonesian government, all the policies and everything. I think most governments in especially in Southeast Asia are, except Singapore maybe, are not so much doing well in handling the COVID-19, and the one that they want to save more than anyone is their own groups, right? In Indonesia, I can see that is so much the case. It's not on the good of the people, and how the testing pack is so limited, issues with the APT, the issues on you know, how government has became so anti-science, and how then they involve irrelevant ministries to handling this, especially the military, which doesn't have any competence to produce vaccine, for example, and so on and so forth. But also the everything that one is the economic crisis, but also it also make attentions on what I said about the civil liberties, everything that, you know, might be in opposition or criticizing the government will be shut down. So economic crisis is one, and Indonesia, like since yesterday, I think the government has announced that we are at the stage of economic crisis, economic recession. So I think that is one of the also challenge. But I also want to add what Akihisa said about the human rights mechanism in ASEAN, in Southeast Asian Association of Southeast Asian Network. We do have a commission that works on human rights, which is the ICHA. But this commission, it's not functioning for any kinds of human rights fulfillment, because of one particular principle that is very much what you call that priority in ASEAN, which is the sovereignty. So like issues on West Papua, obviously it cannot be included in the agenda of the ICHA, but you know, basically the commission doesn't do much other than try to make standard or internal policies within the nations, nation members of the organization. But also because Indonesia is quite is leading the association, I think, and in a way that, you know, Indonesia was very much looked upon on the issues of Aceh, for example, how then it settled the conflict within the peace agreement, and then they try to adopt that in any other places in Thailand, for South Thailand, Southern Thailand, or Philippines for that particular case. But you know, all issues related to other cases like West Papua or other religious tensions in Indonesia, or violence against minority groups, it just doesn't got in discussed in the commission. Also issues with Rohingya, for example, and Myanmar has never been agenda big issues for the commission. So we do have kind of mechanism, but it doesn't work. It doesn't function for what it's supposed to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would like to add something? I know that we don't have too much time, so okay. Anna, please.
Sorry, just short remarks. You know, when we speak about challenges to human rights, I think that social media is a kind of challenge, because social media once open our opinion and we can exchange, we can find some support, etc. But at the same time, there is so much violation of human rights in social media, and I think it's observable everywhere. So I think that this is quite important issue. And I would like to join this question with the second question about human rights during pandemic. And I can see, you know, maybe not threat, but there is a problem which should be solved in any way, that non-governmental organizations which really support people whose human rights have been violated nowadays because of economic crisis, because they cannot act in an open way, you know. So NGOs are in trouble. How to help people who are, you know, in difficult situations? So such two issues I can see now, right? Answering for your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would like to say something?
Yes, Maria.
Yes, please.
I think I agree with what Akihisa just said, that Asia is very diverse. And that I would like to add that we have other matters, that matters, that attract, or that we have to attend to. So if other matters is that our basic needs is not really was this fulfilled, yeah. So sometimes the issues of violation just come up in the media, and then the next day other kind of poverty news and other things that is very classic to Asia comes up. Then that's why not too many people attend to this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, who'd like?
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
Yes, I said there's one challenge in the institutional building for human rights, but there's one issue certainly. But the other side of the issue is how we perceive, how we see the human rights in Asia. It's a question of idea, question of perspective, question of a perception. And I think we have a problem in Asia in that respect. We said Asia is diverse, and we celebrate the diversity in Asia. But in domestic fields, in each country, the diversity is so much neglected, and all the states wants a unified nation building, and then so the minorities are suffering from ethnic minorities to religious minorities and sexual minorities, and the minority people with disabilities, always minority. So in reality, we all come to the minority issues in Asia, and then all the political leaders tend to think, as far as the majorities are happy, well, we are doing well, you know. So the majority maybe constitute 60%, 70%, but by saying so, they neglect the rest 30%, 40%. But it's a big number actually, but they shouldn't be regarded as a minority. But this excessive appreciation of a majority's happiness, and this excessive appreciation, what I think is a utilitarianism, is a really a question in Asian ideas at the moment. I think this is related with the historical development of nation building in Asia. We well, Japan as a model that so we are so rapidly developing nation building, chasing after Europe. So that's a contradiction we have in Asia. So both in institutional building and also in ideas as well. Thank you.
Anyone?
Maria.
Okay, so yes, please, Imelda.
Yeah, Maria, for me, the most important changes that worry me is about the economic condition. Yeah, for populist leader, the cash is very important to fund the social program. And then when the government have limited budget to finance the social program, and the chaos can be happen, and then the human right abuse will increase. That's the change that we must handle from now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone? Okay, so if you let me at the end, the last question, because I realize that there are so many issues we should discuss. However, we have no time for it today. So if you can, what would you improve in human rights issue in Asia?
Can I start?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I think because I'm journalist, and I think it's important, the role of the journalist. And I think the problem with the journalist itself, they still have a little knowledge about the covering human rights in Asia. And sometimes they are very racist, for example, how they don't have such a sensitivity, for example, to the victims, in Indonesia, like when every 30 September, when we like quote unquote celebrate the anti-communist day, and then we just like publish story about, oh yeah, this is like because we hate communists, but journalists didn't give context. So I think like I'm like examining my own journalist fellow, and because of and also like covering Rohingya, for example, they don't give the context. So and also they don't have sensitivity. I think if we want to improve the awareness of people, like more aware to the human rights issue, I think it's important also to raise the awareness among journalists, and then to encourage them to write a story with the context. And of course, as a journalist, you cannot be neutral, because we uphold and adhere to like universal value, which is like human rights value as well. So every time I wrote about West Papua, they accuse me as freedom of West Papua followers, separatist followers. So that stigma is very strong until today. So and also I think like I think the journal, there is no support also from the office itself if journalists want to stand up for this important value. So in myself, I hope that in the future human rights activists can work together with the journalists, and just don't hesitate to share discussion and then approach them, because they are very important also.
Thank you very much. Who'd like to? Yes, yes.
Hi, I in the part, the Middle East part of Asia, the biggest problem we have for maybe centuries or if not decades, the freedom of expression. We don't have freedom of expression, and this is in the Middle East is not the dictators denying you, not only the dictators denying you freedom of expression, but also the population, people, the public, like hardly accept any criticism of religion or politics or so this is the biggest thing I would like to improve in the Middle East, because when you have freedom of expression, you can have other things. You can, it's for me, it's the essence, the heart of human rights. And like, for example, in Syria, in the future Syria, when we get rid of this war and Assad and the Islamists, that comes through education. We need to start educate people on accepting other opinions. And that's, I mean, when you accept other opinions, you accept other people's rights, like LGBT rights. You don't accept them because they are different from you. So when you accept the opinion, the difference, you accept other people's rights. So this is my focus, and it's I'm working and dreaming, not only working, of improving.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Who'd like?
Sentence more?
Yes, Anya.
Last sentence, you know, listening to you, it comes to my mind now, maybe I am wrong, but human rights mechanism is very universal. You know, we have mentioned many times that Asia is a very diverse, you know, continent, right? Whichever part of Asia you consider, there are different people, different culture, etc. So I think that this is the greatest challenge for human rights mechanism, how to adopt, if it's properly said, the universalism to the diversity of this continent, you know, because I think that many people just don't understand what human rights are because of the generalization of this idea. But maybe I am wrong, but it comes to my mind when I'm listening to you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who'd like to? Yes, Ayu, please.
Okay, another thing which is, I think it's like, you know, in regards to this pandemic, which I think it's like a two sides of a coin. One is the increased authoritarian practice and innovation from one side that will very much affect the human rights situation, but also at the other side is, I think, the increased also solidarity in the society, not only not only in one particular area, but also in terms of Indonesia, for example, you can see it's expanded in also in other areas. Like for example, what do you call that? A violation, human rights violations happening in, say, in Kendeng in Java, for example. But then you can see the solidarity in Aceh, in the western part of Indonesia. So it's spread out, and in this respect, we should also appreciate the roles and the significance of social media on that. And the other thing is, I think on the solidarity also is becoming expanding, is the significant roles of the students, university students, which, you know, in my time, we talked a lot about the authoritarian regime led by military leader, Suharto. But today, university students, they go on demonstrations and protest on natural resource issue, for example, or on racism against Papua West Papuans, or more, you know, issues that is, you know, needed attention also from many of us on the farmers, for example. And recently, of course, big issues about the anti-corruption law, but also issues about the Cipta Kerja is, maybe someone from Indonesia can help me on the basically on opening investments in Indonesia. So I think solidarity, we can also see solidarity as a means of or way of resilience for communities to survive this pandemic, because not much to hope from the government side, and they're just busy with how they maintain their own narrative, their own discourse, and their own power. But at the community level around you, my neighbors, everywhere, you can see the resilient mechanism is taking place, and it's a big solidarity also among its members within the community. So solidarity is taking place from the personal, and in a way, it reunites families which was divided heavily during the political events in 2019 in Indonesia. So in a way, it's one of the good things also about solidarity, and we can expand that into global solidarity. I think this is like, for this event is also an opportunity for, you know, not only sharing our situations, but also I'm hoping after this meeting we can also proceed something more concrete in terms of supporting solidarity also with most affected people in Indonesia in terms of human rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Who'd like to? Yes, Adi, please.
Thank you. I think the important point for make achievement for human rights in Asia, especially from Indonesian perspective, is institutionalization of human rights control, both in national level and in regional level. Why this is important? Because in South Asian countries, the reluctancy amongst the leader still happen until today. So we lack indicators in South Asia when we speak and pose human rights issue, because we lack institution, this strong institution to control the human rights issues in this region. And last point, I think human rights and political democracy is about human being. So the agenda is humanizing democracy. I think this is in all level, humanizing democracy from NGO to marginal people, to common people, to elite people, because today I think democracy too instrumental and too elitist. So humanizing politics humanizing democracy is important for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes? Would like to be the next? Okay, so I would like to say thank you so much for your great contribution to the seminar today. Thank you that you have accepted my invitation. It was a pleasure to meet you here, and I hope that it will be the beginning of fruitful collaboration among us in the future. I wish you all the best, especially health right now, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet
Maria.
everybody.
Get well soon, Maria.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Take care, everybody.
Thank
you too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Get well soon, Maria.
Thank you so much. I really need it. Thanks a lot.
Get well soon, Maria.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you, Maria. Good
Thank you so
browser.
much. Goodbye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.